there aren't many times that Visa's stock price dips. So when you see the stock price down almost 10% in the last few months, the question has to come up, is now the time to buy Visa? So in this video, we will take a look at why Visa's stock price is down so significantly, as well as I will give my opinion on where the stock could be headed in the future. So if you enjoy the video, drop a like down below, and if you want to see more videos like this one, make sure to subscribe. Visa began their stock price descent back in March, and the stock price fell by around 5.5% in just a couple of weeks. And this drop in stock price came after Visa announced that they had reached a landmark settlement with US merchants after a nearly 20-year litigation. The settlement was going to offer three main benefits. The first being a reduction of credit card interchange rates, the second being the capping of those reduced rates for 5 years, and finally, the allowing of vendors to steer their customers to more preferred payment methods and allow for more optionality around surcharges. However, in the last few weeks, we have seen some additional news released about this settlement, and that has caused Visa's stock price to fall by another 5%. And the reason for this more recent drop in the stock price comes from the fact that a US judge has actually rejected the settlement between Visa, MasterCard, and these US merchants. The overall feel around the settlement was that it only offered temporary and small relief to merchants, as well as made it more difficult to mount future legal challenges against the companies. And personally, I believe one of the other large motives behind rejecting the settlement offer has to do with the inflation that we have seen over the last few years. Consumers at the end of the day have seen prices increase dramatically over the course of the last 5 years, and this is something that affects the consumer's wallet and the broader economy in general. And I think a lot of people are very aware of this, and through settling this deal, there are concerns that Visa and MasterCard could still have a lot of power to raise their prices in the future, and that could ultimately be a bad thing for consumers. And this has even drawn attention from US senators, as they have promoted legislation called the Credit Card Competition Act that would allow merchants to use other payment networks to process Visa and MasterCard transactions. And this is something that will not only positively impact the end customer, it'll also have a big impact on small businesses across the United States. By allowing other payment networks to process Visa and MasterCard transactions, this will actually bring more competition into this space and drive down these fees. And yes, these fees seem like a very small percentage, and they are. They're 1.5% to 3.5% of each transaction. However, over a long period of time, this money adds up. In 2023, these fees totaled $72 billion. And credit cards are being used more and more frequently. In 2017, we actually saw for the first time credit cards surpass cash in their percentage used for in-person transactions. And fast forward till today, and that discrepancy has only widened. Credit cards are used in 36% of in-person transactions versus cash being used in only 19% of those transactions. Cash is now actually the fourth most common payment method for in-person transactions, behind credit cards, debit cards, and digital wallets. And credit cards have gained a lot of attention from small businesses as well as the political system in general. And a lot of this has to do with one very key metric, and that is delinquency rates on credit card loans. In 2021, we saw delinquencies sitting at 1.54%. However, in the first quarter of 2024, that rate has reached all the way up to 3.16%, which is higher than the 2.66% we saw in the first quarter of 2020, and you have to go all the way back to 2011 to find rates higher than what we are seeing here today. So overall, this is not a good time for Visa to be in the news for their charges that are affecting consumers. In the short term, this shouldn't have a huge effect on Visa. However, the question is, how will this all play out, and will this have a major effect on their long-term earnings? What we can see from analysts for this year is they're expecting $9.95. Next year, they're expecting that number to grow to $11.18. This is something that Visa has been very good at, growing their earnings over time. And part of the reason they have been able to do this is because they have a lot of control over the market and over the fees that they're charging. If we see them lose some of that control, this could ultimately affect their earnings over time. time. Personally, I think that Visa is going to be okay over time. There's obviously a lot of question marks still around this. If we see the US senators and US law come into effect and they potentially cap the growth that Visa can put on some of their fees, that could ultimately affect the business and really slow down some of Visa's growth. We have seen them have a large moat around their business for a number of years, and really the only players in this market are Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. When we think about the broader credit card market, those are the main three players. And if we see the Fed come in and introduce laws that bring other players in, that could add competition to Visa's market. This could actually be something that is good for a company like PayPal. If they're able to get into processing Visa and MasterCard payments, that could ultimately help expand their business. However, for Visa in the short term, the question is what is all going to happen from this? Are we going to see laws come into place that could dramatically affect their business? And that's why we're seeing the stock fall right now. Personally, I'm buying in because I think long-term Visa is still going to be a great company. But remember, do not buy a company just because I talked about it here on YouTube. Make sure you are doing your own research and looking into companies that meet your risk tolerance as well as your time horizon. With all of that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like down below. And if you want to see more videos like this one, make sure to subscribe. And as always, guys, have a wonderful rest of your day. And for the joke of the day, which days are strongest? Check the comments down below for the answer. Thanks for watching.